Hey guys, so it's Gomer here from Itchy Nuisance and oldworldfanatics.com podcast. We recorded last night and we missed this. It just came in this morning, our time, so I'm sure it's popping all over YouTube in terms of the first set of rules and updates, hopefully pretty frequently until the old world comes out early next year. I'm sure we'll talk about this a lot on the Old World Fanatics podcast, but I just wanted to, I guess, go through my take on it, and just, I guess, keep you guys entertained with a few little extra YouTube videos. Not sure what we're going to do with this channel, but we'll try and get more battle reports up and things like that as we go. So yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, they promised they were going to start dropping some rule and more game info this week, and then it came out the next day, which is what this is. If you haven't seen it yet, obviously it's on warhammercommunity.com. So basically, they're going to go through the different phases of the game. So first thing, I saw this image and I thought, oh, that looks pretty cool. And then I did a bit of a Google search and it looks like that's maybe from Total War, so it's not new. But I was interested to see goblins because we haven't really seen a lot of goblins in the other sort of images yet. So I'm just wondering if that means anything. Probably not. I won't go through word for word, but I'll probably try and capture some of the stuff, sort of the main points that I thought. It's interesting they talk about unrolling the last of the green flock. Does that mean it's that close, or is that a sort of a hint back to the old Goblin Green days? Not that they're bringing that back, but just, that nostalgia, I guess. And so, we knew that they ditched the magic phase. So the first thing is going to be sort of this game structure. And we knew they ditched the magic phase. But it seems like they've definitely aligned this more to do around some of the other games. So now we've got strategy phase, movement phase, shooting phase, and combat phase. A couple of things. First, I mentioned this on the podcast last night, which if you haven't seen the latest Old World Fanatics podcast, just grab that. That I thought that we were going to start seeing some of this, the design and the aesthetics of the actual rule books and stuff. We see this a lot with 10th edition when it was coming out, 40k, as well as Horus Heresy. Basically snapshots of, I'd say it's almost the rule book, if you know what I mean, like the little parts that are around on the pages in the rule book. So, we're going to start seeing some of this. I like these little graphics down here, sort of hint back to the sort of 5th edition, sort of little caricatures, or however you say it, which is pretty cool. Now, is this the bit that talks about now? So it's a bit, this blurb up the top's pretty just fluff, really. But we're going to have the strategy phase. So it looks like they're trying to clear things up a little bit by putting more stuff that would have been just thrown, like, for example, they mentioned further down here, fanatics, things that happen sort of in the middle of different phases. They're trying to clean that up by going, no, look, that all happens in the strategy phase. And obviously magic is littered through here. So you see strategy phase is about, attempting to cast enchantment and hex spells. Says the active player attempts to cast enchantment or hex spells and makes use of certain special rules before attempt to rally any of the fleeing units. So, because, rally fleeing troops used to be part of movement and all that sort of stuff. So this is like set everything up, then move, which is, declaring your charges. I guess, unfortunately here, are we still going to see people like, the Mountain from Mountain Miniatures, just it's the first thing everyone says is, do you have any charges to declare? Well, now it's the second phase, so I guess that's not so relevant to the beginning of the turn anymore. I jest, obviously. But then you're obviously doing conveyance spells, which are your movement spells. So you can see how they're trying to litter the different spells throughout the whole game. Like, we were worried about, like, magic might drop off a bit because it doesn't have a magic phase, but if anything, it might actually be a lot more important, which is pretty cool. Shooting phase, obviously the active player shoots, and then can also cast magic missiles and magic vortex spells. I like to see vortex spells. Hopefully we don't have like big death ones, but I would love to see the endless spell model type things come out for, it came out in AOS, but it'd be great for them to sort of supply some of that. Again, just make it, Games Workshop, and we'll buy it, And then obviously combat, and you've got some of those, combat spells as well that are in there. Now, I guess the thing is, if we come down to this little blurb down here, it talks about the game's broken down into rounds and turns. I've already seen 2 different videos here with 2 different opinions, both saying they might be wrong, which, again, I might be wrong too. I agree with one of them. I don't think it's a lot different to what we've seen. I think we are, maybe we call them turns at the moment, like goes to turn 5 or turn 6. I think they're going to switch this to rounds, like battle rounds. Would this drop from a 6-turn or 6-round game down to a 5? I don't know. But then the rounds are made up of a player 1, active, like 2 turns, basically, like player, your turn, their turn. But I'm pretty sure when it's your turn in that round, you go through all your phases and sub-phases, and then they do. So, like, it's really just switching around the terminology of rounds and turns, I think, because otherwise I wouldn't, as we come down here, there's certain spells that can happen where both players can, it specifically mentions both players can do it in that phase. So I'm assuming if they really meant that both would do a strategy phase, both would do a movement phase, both would do a shooting phase, that'd be less relevant. But who knows? I guess we'll see. Games Workshop aren't always clear on rule writing, although obviously these potentially aren't the rule writers that are doing this. And then obviously each of these phases is sub-phased. I mean, it's pretty common. Obviously they're just trying to step it out for you. The other cool thing I just wanted to talk about with the magic here, unless we talk more about it, maybe, which I think would be cool from a competitive / some process when you're playing the game, is, so common. It's pretty common, at least for me. I'm not that good a player. I don't play a heap. That someone will set up, they'll roll their spells. They might have 3 spells, 4 spells, 5 spells, bloody who knows. And I have no idea still, even though, and if they don't have cards, it's even worse. But even if they have cards by turn their magic phase and then turn 2, turn 3, I can't really remember. Like, I'm always sort of going, what have you got again? Like, what can you hit me with? The cool thing with this, I can see myself writing down like, strategy movement, strategy combat, like, well, SMSC, sort of like just jot it down and then ask them, go through what spells they have available, like maybe they've got 3 hex spells, no movement spells, 1 shooting spell. I sort of can just jot it down. So then when I'm in each of my phases and their phases when they're having their turn, I sort of straight away know what shooting spells they've got 2 shooting spells, that type of thing. I guess you could do something like that in the old one, but I think limiting it to the phases is going to make it heaps easier to go, right, I'm about to move. What can they, screw up if movement not that applicable, but you know what I mean? Like, I can try and just limit down what I have to think about if I now know what they do, and I categorize them down into the phases that the enemy can cast them at. Probably not clear, but it's clear in my head. Anyway, yeah, the strategy phase kicks off with a starter turn sub phase, which I find this funny. They're sort of talked about, all the common stuff like, stupidity young trolls and things. Interestingly, they mentioned Night Goblin Fanatics placed on the table. So again, here's I don't know if it was a big deal, but definitely past editions, you would do something and you had to go, stop, especially before pre-measure was in 8th. You sort of had to stop at 8 inches. So it's like, well, how do I know that? Like, we have to measure then, and then, it screws up. Then I fire my guys. It probably is more something where at the beginning of your turn, any unit within whatever, 8 inches, then you put your fanatics down. So I don't know if that means then you shoot them and you have to wait till movement to do that. Who knows? But, it's potentially clearing it up, I guess. But, I think that's the way I'm reading it anyway. Checking victory conditions. So this is cool. I do hope it is more scenario based, a little bit like what they're doing with the AOS and 40k. So it's not just fantasy's always just been, destroy, get victory points. It's a less maneuverable game in terms of speed. Obviously, it's a lot of movement strategy wise, but it's hard to get one unit from one end of the board to the other and stuff. So the actual objectives may have to be slightly different. And I sort of don't want the 40k of just, there's 5 big circles on the board, and that's, it just doesn't look always that good. So I hope they don't go down totally that route, but I would like them to, try and mix the games up a bit by having some very, interesting sort of victory conditions. And then you have this command phase, sub phase, which is where you fire off your special rules. Sorry, your character's special rules. And here they've got an item here. So this is the magic item. We're seeing our first one, the Falcon Horn of Fredamund. The cool thing about this, obviously, leadership tests look to be on standard 2d6. It talks about unmodified here. We have the Fly X special rule, so we're seeing them put special, like I guess keywords. I wish they would actually monospace the keywords. I'm a bit of a computer geek, but that would be you could match up. You could just glance at a page and know which special rules. Makes it so much easier. I don't know why they haven't done it here. Maybe they do in the book. I don't know. But yeah, each turn, if you're not in combat, you can. It's not a magic spell. It just happens on your leadership. You get a Fly X. It basically stops flying. So that actually sounds pretty dangerous. But I guess we'll see how that goes. And they mention the Hand of Gork as well. That's again a conveyance spell now, and that's done in the movement phase. So, we've had, what did they call them back here? The what did I talk about? They had the different name for them back here, wherever it was, the enchantment and hex spells. But then the movement ones are called conveyance spells, and they obviously, your wizards be able to cast that and move things in that phase. The third step of the strategy phase is conjuration. Okay, sorry, that's conjuration, which is your hexes and enchantments. So they're calling the different spell types to match the phases, which is pretty cool. And then they do go into a bit of detail about the type of not so much how to cast, but we can see here that there's a casting value of 7+. So there was this idea that maybe it'll turn into like the old 40k cycle where you just do a leadership, like to cast your spells. I'm glad that's not the case. Obviously, it's the case with that magic sort of enchanted item, but that makes sense, I guess. But yeah, this is a standard, there's law in Nehakara, which I love. So hopefully we see, if not the same laws, but very similar laws that come through. Because even though the Empire don't have the schools of magic, the laws still, the 8 winds still exist. So I'm hoping we still see that, in whatever variants different armies can use them in. Yeah, and it's a casting value of 7+. So that's going to be interesting. I mean, a 7+, I don't know what the percentage chances on 2d6 are. So I'm not sure it's just going to be 2d6 all the time, because that to me seems like a hard thing to always roll, if you know what I mean. It's like only less than, 50-50 or whatever it is. Be good if you get a bit of, if you get your magic dice and you keep them through your turn. It's a lot to keep track of, though. Like a turn can go for a while, or a round, or whatever you want to call it. So that's going to be interesting to see. So, but obviously they're going to talk more about the magic phase later on, and how that dispels work and stuff. I did want to, if I just go back to this paragraph here. So in the strategy phases, it's conjuration, which is when you cast enchantments or hexes. Players take it in turns during this step to choose wizards who aren't fleeing to attempt to cast spells. So it's sort of 4th edition, tit for tat, like I think it was 4th. I don't know if it changed in 5th, but magic phase, you went, they went, you went, they went for each spell until you ran out of cards. It seems like, because hexes are often things you want to put on your enemy, it feels like this strategy phase is almost going to be like the conjuration part of the strategy phase is going to be almost like a mini magic phase, just for hexes and stuff, where you're going back and forth, setting it up for that player's turn to do their movement, shooting, combat. So that's going to be interesting. That's where I thought that if you always did taking turns, and maybe that was less relevant, but yeah, who knows? But yeah, no, I like that sort of change there. And then we talk about, they go into rallying and how that works in this sub phase. Obviously, it's a leadership test. They say 2 dice, so it's going to be pretty similar. And then they do mention that, if you're under half strength, it's -1. So that's pretty cool. Like, they're bringing some psychology in here. They say they got more on morale later in the article. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then obviously it's double ones, if you're under 25. So yeah, if you get people fleeing, the cycle, I think they're trying to boost this psychology, which I really like. And then I'll probably skim back over. I probably missed a few things because it's hard to read and talk. Sorry. But I like this last paragraph. I'm not sure what this means here, but, they're going to obviously give us more clues and more things as they're going, plus rules for magic, morale, psychology, all that stuff. But then they say, the factions, the settings, the models, and ... the future of the game, only here on Warhammer Community. I don't know if that's... I don't know. I don't think that... I think that means something. And I don't know if that... I'm reading it, hopefully... I'm probably way too positive about this stuff, but I feel like they've got a lot of good response to this. They can see it, and so they want to talk about that a little bit, in terms of... I think directions are still... Obviously, directions change a lot with GW. They can't just turn on a dime, but I think they're very much open to continually invest and expand on this thing if it's good. And you're not going to write that if that's ominous, I don't think. Like, we're going to cut it back a bit or whatever. I don't know. Hopefully we see a lot. Hopefully that's a positive sign and not just, we need to tell you what's coming. I think it's a bit more than that, but that's just me reading into it. Apart from that, there was other little things here. I thought it was funny that they mentioned, where was it? The dice. Let me just search for that. Yeah. Additionally, a particular ceremony require you to check victory conditions. You may also use this period to tidy the table and remove any stray casualties and errant dice. They want us to keep a clean table, or does that mean something? I don't know. That's a bit weird. So I'm just looking on my other screen for any of these notes. Probably not too much. So yeah, that's probably my thoughts. Let us know in the comments, what you think of it. And obviously, if you haven't already, I hate to keep piping it. I'm not sure what's happening with Gomo's Itchy Nuisance YouTube channel. I'm half tempted to just switch it over to, name it Old World Fanatics. Josh and Andrew we've been running this podcast for up to 12 episodes now. Thousands of downloads. We're really happy that people are interested in the old world, and doing the podcast as well as some YouTube videos obviously gives us better coverage, but they're different effort. I can throw a YouTube channel video up like this on my own, or we can do our podcast, or when we get time, we can do battle reports, which are bigger efforts again. So definitely, if you haven't followed us there, please follow us there. I know I've got the podcast on YouTube channel there as well, but they're just there to, I guess, say that old world exists. I'm not sure I'm going to use YouTube as a podcast host. I'd rather people come in here, subscribe on any of these. Obviously, we use Transistor FM as a podcast host, and they just, syndicate it out to all these. So no excuse not to be listening to the Old World Fanatics. Is that right? Yep. And then follow us on Instagram. We're dumping lots of pictures and questions and stuff that we do on Instagram. So we'd really like to see on there, because we post our up-to-date, where's profile? I'm still learning to use this. Up-to-date pictures of some of the armies, our battle reports, funny stories, stuff like that. So love to have you as one of our followers there. But otherwise, until the next article, guys, I will see you next time.